Clear! We're getting mermaids! The D23 Dreamlight Valley panel just happened, and a lot of new developments have been talked about. I'm super excited. I'm more excited for this DLC than I was going into that because there were so many things revealed. Unfortunately, the bulk of the showcase was the panel talking more about the game itself and trying to introduce it to, I guess, new players, because a lot of it was things that longtime players like myself would probably have already been aware of or known. All of the reveals talked about the September update as well as the December update, and most importantly, the expansion. We did get confirmation that Oogie Boogie will be coming with the September update. It sounds like the Halloween event itself is going to be a much longer process than it normally has been. They said it would be about 6 weeks leading up to Halloween that the event would span across. And it's kind of gotten mixed reports about whether or not Oogie Boogie will be given to us at the start, at the update when it launches, or at the end of that 6 weeks when Halloween comes around. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But hopefully we'll get him as soon as the update comes out, and then we'll have him throughout the rest of that Halloween season. In a surprising turn of events, we're getting Lilo in the December update. It seems like the end of the year update is kind of starting to get used as the requested villagers slot. Like last year we got Cinderella, and I feel like Cinderella tied into the wintry vibes a little bit better than I think Lilo is going to. But I think that works because we're going to be getting her right on the heels of this expansion, which has now been confirmed as the Keepsake Sea. We weren't shown very much, but from what we can tell, this is going to be kind of what I thought, which is like a hybrid of both underwater areas and land areas. It seems like those land areas are going to be fairly tropical. We did get confirmation that Jack Sparrow is going to be one of the characters in this expansion. He's the only character that's confirmed so far, and the confirmation was just a shadow of him and very identifiably his voice. Probably not going to be Johnny Depp voicing this character. Most of the video game iterations of Pirates of the Caribbean have another actor playing him. A lot of people are very excited because this is kind of the first time that live action characters have been brought into the fold of the Valley. And while I can see why people might feel that way, I would urge caution and not to get your hopes up, because of all of the live action franchises that Disney has, Pirates of the Caribbean is the most represented in video games. They appeared in Disney Infinity, they appeared in Kingdom Hearts. Like it's very normal for Pirates of the Caribbean to be included in video games like this, where there's like an ensemble of all the movies. Most of the time those are animated movies, and then they include Pirates of the Caribbean along with that a lot of the time. It's not super shocking that this is being introduced. What this probably does mean is that eventually we could be looking at Star Wars characters coming to the game. A lot of people thought that Pirates of the Caribbean was going to be an adventure pack because then they could introduce Jack Sparrow, Will Turner, and Elizabeth Swann all together. I think that this actually does point to that being a pretty strong possibility, because it's kind of the same pattern they followed with releasing Tigger in Wish Blossom Ranch and then following that up with Honeyglow Woods, releasing 3 more characters from the Winnie the Pooh franchise. So I think they could follow a similar pattern with this, and we could see an adventure pack for Pirates of the Caribbean after this that would then include Elizabeth Swann, Will Turner, and maybe Barbossa as the third character. And I say Barbossa because he actually is a character that has been included in the video games before, like specifically Disney Infinity. The 2 Pirates of the Caribbean characters that were in that game were Jack Sparrow and Barbossa. So it would not surprise me if he's one of the people who is brought in if an adventure pack for Pirates of the Caribbean comes. But now I want to talk about the most exciting part of this showcase for me personally, which is that it looks like we're going to be able to turn our avatars into merfolk, and I'm very excited about this. It was hard to tell from the brief thing that we saw in the trailer about whether or not this is going to be a fully underwater biome that we can explore as mermaids, or if the mermaid part and the underwater part are going to be more like the Crystal Caverns from Wish Blossom Ranch or the Ever Oak Tree from Honeyglow Woods, like the part where the story progresses and it's not necessarily somewhere that you can decorate. But I'm leaning toward it being a biome and being decoratable. I feel like it would be a pretty big letdown if we weren't able to spend a decent amount of time as merfolk and actually be underwater and interact with characters like Ariel and Ursula under the water. Plus, we've already got a lot of furniture and decoration that's very clearly undersea inspired, as you can see by where I'm standing. So I think we will be able to traverse this underwater area as a full biome and decorate it. A lot of the items that were shown underneath the mermaid that was swimming, a lot of them are from the game, like stuff that we already have, furniture items. So I think that bodes well for whether or not we're going to be able to decorate underwater. What I don't know is how they're going to, like, how that activates. Like, are we going to have to teleport to this underwater area every time? Like, is there not going to be a way for us to just walk into it like there has been in every other expansion? Like, you can just walk from biome to biome and they're all connected. It seems like these whirlpools are going to be the way that they're connected, but like, are we going to be able to walk in the water and like go to those whirlpools? I'm not really sure how they're going to make that work in terms of this hybrid of like underwater biome versus land biome and how they connect, because it does seem like we're going to have those land biomes based on the shot. They zoomed down over like a tropical shipwreck area before they got to the whirlpool that brought us underwater. So I feel like that kind of confirms that we're getting both, but then it doesn't confirm how we're going to get from one to the other. Because in other games that I've played that have underwater areas, like a lot of them are mostly like MMOs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. But with those, it's seamless. Like you can walk into the water and just start swimming. So I'm not sure. I just don't know that this game is capable of that. It just seems like a huge graphical undertaking, especially if they have to also work in the transformation into mermaids. So I don't want to underestimate Gameloft's ability here, but I feel like I'm already surprised enough that we're getting mermaids to begin with. So I don't know that I think that they're going to be able to seamlessly transition from land to water. I think we are going to have to either go through the little water portals or teleport directly to the underwater areas. I don't feel like there's going to be a seamless connection like we're used to. But I'm fine with that. I don't need it to be seamless. Like the floating islands aren't seamless. You have to teleport to those. So I feel like there's precedent, and I don't really feel like we need it to be seamless. So I don't think that it probably won't be. But with all those announcements out of the way, I do want to start analyzing the information that we did get, which wasn't much, but in classic me fashion, I overanalyzed the showcase, the things that were in the videos, but more importantly, the panel themselves. A lot of the characters that people are expecting from this expansion were Little Mermaid characters, Finding Nemo characters, Captain Hook as the villain, most likely. Some people were thinking Lilo, but since we're getting her in December, we're definitely not getting her as part of this expansion. And then there's also Luca and Atlantis. But it's not uncommon when panels like this happen where there is a big audience watching for the developers to hint at things via what they're wearing. And I took a look at the panel. So all three of them, Josh, Alexis, and Riley, were wearing clothes with full like Disney character patterns on them. Now, this could just be that they were dressing up for the part and like it's a Disney game, so wear your Disney clothes. But I think it might be more of a hint than it may have seemed. So we'll just go down the line. Josh was wearing a shirt completely Toy Story. And at first I kind of had the inclination to kind of write that off as like, oh, he's just wearing a Toy Story shirt. But then I got thinking about maybe this is a call out to Pixar and Finding Nemo, and kind of that hint that we're going to get a character from Finding Nemo for this expansion. I hope that it's Nemo himself. And then I took a look at Riley's shirt, and it's covered in Disney villains. The only villains on her shirt that aren't in the game were Dr. Facilier and the Evil Queen. Both of these characters would be kind of out of left field for the villain of this expansion, but I also feel like there's always one character that is kind of out of nowhere. Like, I feel like nobody was expecting Cruella for Wish Blossom Ranch because they hinted so much that like this person was in charge of the ranch while we were away, and they didn't do a very good job. And so people were like trying to connect horses to whoever this villain was, and then it was Cruella, which was highly unexpected. Didn't really feel like it matched the vibe of the rest of the expansion. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that we get a villain that isn't necessarily related to water. If I had to pick between Dr. Facilier and the Evil Queen in terms of which one I think would come to the game first, I think the Evil Queen would be my pick, because Florian is not a super like well-known Disney prince, whereas Naveen is a very popular character. So I don't feel like we would get Dr. Facilier before we got Naveen, but I think we could get the Evil Queen before we get Florian. because just as an example, I feel like some of you listening to this might not even know that the prince from Snow White's name is Prince Florian. So I feel like that's indicative in and of itself of he is not necessarily a priority over the evil queen. Same way we got Maleficent before we've seen Prince Philip, even though Prince Philip is my favorite Disney prince. It kind of makes sense that we got Maleficent before him because she is a much more popular character. Whereas I think it's the other way around for Princess and the Frog. I think Naveen is potentially more popular than Dr. Facilier, so I feel like it would make more sense to get him first. But the outfit that I'm reading into more here is actually Alexis's dress. It's absolutely covered in Disney characters, a lot of which we don't have. So it could just be a red herring. It could be nothing. I could be reading into things that are not intended to be read into, but I feel like that's all we can do with the limited information that we got. So some of the characters that were on her dress that are not currently in the game were characters like Bambi, Prince Charming, Dumbo, Pleakley, the Evil Queen again, Baloo, Pongo, Pinocchio, Shere Khan from the Jungle Book, and most importantly for me, I feel like in this situation, Captain Hook. So the double Evil Queen is a pretty big indicator for me that I think it's very possible we get her as a villain for this expansion, even though it's very unexpected. But that also does still leave Captain Hook as a possibility, which would, I feel like, make more sense for this setting. But the interesting character that I'm also looking at on her dress is Shere Khan. One, we haven't gotten any Jungle Book characters yet. We really haven't even gotten a lot of Jungle Book furniture. I feel like the Jungle Book would fit pretty nicely into the aesthetic of this expansion, being that it's in a jungle. I know it's not necessarily like on the ocean, but like it is pretty rare for their expansions to be exclusively one theme. So I feel like the Jungle Book is close enough to that theme where it could still fit, but be very different from the rest of the biomes that we might get. So I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that we do get Shere Khan, but what I think is more likely is Baloo himself, because then that leaves the villain slot open for either the Evil Queen or Captain Hook, and then Baloo could be one of the other characters in this expansion. None of their clothes had anything Atlantis on them, but if I'm playing devil's advocate with myself, their clothes might mean nothing, so I think Atlantis does make a lot of sense for this expansion. The last franchise I want to talk about, there's no doubt that we are going to get a character from Little Mermaid in this expansion. Like, there is just no way that we're not. If we don't, I don't know what they're doing over there at Gameloft, but they're making mistakes is what they're doing. There's no way we're not getting a Little Mermaid character. It's a question of which one. And I feel like Sebastian is a fan favorite. I feel like of the three ones that are being talked about the most, which would be Sebastian, King Triton, and Flounder, Sebastian's probably the more fan favorite of the three. In my opinion, I could be completely off base on that, but I think of the three, he's the most popular. That being said, I feel like the character that we get from this franchise is more than likely going to be the character that guides us through the transition into us being merfolk and like swimming around and teaching us how to navigate as a person underwater. And I feel like of those three characters, the one that makes the most sense is Flounder, because he is he's a companion for Ariel. He follows her around, he helps her find stuff. This is called the Keepsake Sea. While yes, that word can be tied to memories, to me that reads as like Ariel's collection of oddities and keepsakes that she would be finding. So I think that ties in with her, and so I feel like Flounder is the most likely of those three that we would see in this expansion, which does, I feel like, unfortunately mean we wouldn't see the other two, just because it's rare that they do an expansion with more than one character from a given franchise. That doesn't close the door on getting a Little Mermaid adventure pack though, because I feel like it could, now that they have the ability to let us go underwater, it's not unlikely that we get a underwater adventure pack. And what that could mean is a Little Mermaid adventure pack where we would see people like King Trident, Sebastian, potentially Melody, given that I think she's the only canonical child of a main character of a Disney movie. I could be wrong unless I'm missing something, but I think she is the only one. If we're not talking about Descendants, if we're talking about mainline Disney movies, I think she's the only one. So she is a character that I think we should get at some point. So those three characters could fit pretty nicely into an adventure pack. On the flip side of that, the Finding Nemo universe would also make a very good adventure pack, because then you have the three characters right there: Nemo, Marlin, Dory. So it is possible we don't see a Finding Nemo character in this expansion, and then we see three of them in an adventure pack later. And my Evil Queen prediction is not just based on the fact that she appeared on 2 of the articles of clothing on stage, but also that she is one of the most integrated already into the game villains that we have. Like, I thought genuinely before we got confirmation that it was Oogie Boogie, I thought she was a huge contender for the September update. Because it's also not uncommon for them to have a through-line franchise for their DLCs. If we look at base game, we got Mother Gothel. Eternity Isle, we got Rapunzel. Storybook Vale, we got Flint. Wish Blossom Ranch, we got Maximus. I think we're out of Tangled characters at this point, so I do think that franchise, the through line, unless it's complete coincidence, which I do not believe that, then that through line franchise, they're probably going to pick one that's fairly popular, and it would probably be one that we got in Wish Blossom Ranch. Cruella's franchise doesn't really have a ton more characters that are as popular as she is, other than potentially Pongo and Perdita, but I just don't see one of those characters being introduced in this expansion, just because I don't know how they would tie that in at all. So that leaves us with Tigger, who I don't see another Winnie the Pooh character coming with this, because we just got the adventure pack. We are still missing Rabbit, Kenga, and Roo, and Owl, but I just don't see any of those being introduced in this expansion. So that leaves us with Snow White and Tinkerbell, which is why I think it's equally possible that we see Silver Mist in this DLC, because that would be a through line from Wish Blossom of having Tinkerbell and then Silver Mist. Because I think Pixie Hollow would make a really good through line, because there are so many main characters in that franchise. Because you've got Silver Mist, you've got Rosetta, Iridessa, Vidia, Fawn, Bauble, Clank, and Periwinkle. All very equally important to the plot of each of the movies for the Pixie Hollow. So I think that is definitely a direction they could go, and I think obviously who better than Silver Mist for a water expansion? In my mind, following that logic, the Evil Queen and Silver Mist are equally possible. The Evil Queen has a bit stronger of a hold for me because of the fact that she's on 2 articles of clothing that were on stage, and also we just got Snow White, so she could serve as that through line. There is the possibility of like them not wanting to introduce a second pirate character in an expansion with Jack Sparrow having Captain Hook there as well. I mean, that could be an interesting dynamic between the two, but I think it's more likely that they would shy away from that versus to embrace that. I could be totally wrong on that. But I'm going to stop myself from rambling there. To summarize, we are getting Oogie Boogie confirmed, we are getting Lilo confirmed, and we are getting Captain Jack Sparrow confirmed. And we are getting Mermaid Tales confirmed. Those are the only 4 things that were actually confirmed in this update. And even then, the mermaid and how it's going to work was not confirmed. So all we know is at some point we will be able to look like mermaids, whether that's in exploration as way around biomes or if that's simply in story zones. I don't know. But some form of mermaid has been confirmed. I'm going to finalize my picks for the rest of the cast of this expansion. My picks are Captain Hook as our villain, Captain Jack Sparrow obviously confirmed, Flounder, Nemo, and Silver Mist. That is all for today's video. I hope we are all just as excited about all the new content coming to the game. I do need to start thinking about where I'm going to put Oogie Boogie. If you enjoy my content, if you like watching build videos and all that kind of stuff, please like and subscribe. I do think I'm going to be redesigning my Dazzle Beach in honor of this expansion. I do think it's time for it to have an upgrade. You're kind of looking at a section of my beach now. But I do think that Ariel's probably going to be moving into this expansion. So I will have to kind of redo some things here. But thanks for watching and see you next time.